welcome all. Thank you for joining. First thing is the sound of lawnmower is Om. It's the sound of Om. So we are here to have a nice 2-day retreat today and tomorrow on this beautiful work called Ulladu Narpadu. This is the work that is graced by the lotus feet of Ramana Maharshi, and it's a very special work. So we will go into this work, but before that we will just go into the beauty of coming together. We briefly talked about it. Satsang is such a beautiful way to dive into truth. In fact, in the same word, Ulladu Narpadu, Anubandham, the first few verses are only glorifying Satsang, because everything else needs some kind of effort, whether it's meditation, whether it's chanting, whether it's puja, anything else we do, we need some kind of effort. The only thing that's effortless truly is Satsang, because once we come to Satsang, we are already in the divine presence. We don't have to do a thing. It just takes us. It's like a boat that carries us. Otherwise, we have to swim. We have to use our effort. But Satsang is a boat that simply carries us effortlessly. So Bhagavatam, as we know, for instance, of all the various practices, various activities one can engage in, it puts Satsang as the number one, because Satsang simply provides the energy that is necessary to go within. Normally, the world is taking us outwardly. That is the natural tendency of people caught in identification with me and mine. When we come together in Satsang, then it creates that field of energy that takes us inward and thereby outward to see everything as an expression of Bhagavan. Jada Bharata also says in Bhagavatam, as recently we saw, that not through tapas, not through studying Vedas, not through meditation, not through rituals, not through yajna, but through associating with devotees, with those who are realized, with those who are giving us the teaching like this. So when we speak of associating with the teacher, that is associating with the teaching. And when we come together to go into the teaching, we are directly in the presence of the teacher, because the teacher is the teaching and the teaching is the teacher. So when we associate with the teacher through the teaching, collectively, there is tremendous energy in it. As Shankara says beautifully, we all know Adi Shankara says, Satsangatve nissangatvam, nissangatve nirmohatvam, nirmohatve nischalatatvam, nischalatatve jivan muktihi. And that verse is translated also by Ramana Maharshi in Anubandham, because that verse, very simple Sanskrit, it says Satsangatve nissangatvam. Through Satsang, we get detachment. We don't get unnecessarily caught up in worldly attachments. That is Nissanga. Nissangatve nirmohatvam. Nirmohatvam means freedom from delusion. Moha is delusion. Normally, it is said that we have 6 enemies. They call it Ari Shad. Ari means enemy. Hari is our friend. Ari is enemy. So, Ari Shad Varga, they say. Ari means enemy. Shad means 6. 6 enemies are Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Mada, Moha, Matsarya. Kama is desire or lust. Krodha is anger. Lobha is greed. Mada is pride. Moha is delusion. Matsarya is envy. Of all the 6, the root is actually Moha. Everything else comes out of Moha. So if you want to reduce the 6 to 1, it becomes Moha. Because Moha is that which deludes us into the idea of me and mine. And because of that, we engage in all the other things: greed, lust, fear, pride, anger, envy, comparison, all of that. So nirmohatvam means removing that moha and thereby removing all the 6 enemies. And when these 6 enemies go, moha goes, nirmohatve nishchalatatvam. When moha goes, delusion goes, me and mind goes, there is stillness. Nishchala tattvam, which is literally the meaning of Arunachala. Achala, Nishchala, both are synonymous. So Nishchala tattvam means that which does not move, that which is still. And Nishchala tattve jivan mukti. When we are still, we are free. It's as simple as that. When the mind is still, then we are free. In other words, when there is no sense of me and mine, then we are free. We can engage in activities in a spirit of then love and service, not out of what's in it for me. So there is only 2 ways to engage in activities. Either we engage in it as what's in it for me, or we engage in it as how can I serve. Those are the only 2 ways in which we can act. And normally the world pushes us to operate in the what's in it for me mode. Everywhere, corporate world, education, everywhere. Satsang is to bring us to the platform of how can I serve. Because when I recognize that all there is only the one supreme being expressing as the infinite beautiful forms, everyone, everything, then every interaction is a service. So that mode of service is freedom. So Jivan Muktihi seems like a very abstract term, but it's not abstract at all. It can be simply seen as a life of service, life without a sense of me, life without functioning from what's in it for me, but living as engaging in activities with service. So Krishna says beautifully in the Gita, that's why Sarvarambha Parityagi Mad Bhaktaha Same Priya. He says one who is free of selfish initiative is my true devotee and he is my dear. So Sarvarambha Parityagi is the definition of a Jivan Mukta. The one who does not engage in any activity for himself. It doesn't mean he is idle. He is active all the time. We see, of course, with the greatest example of Ramana Maharshi producing all these beautiful works. And of course, we see Adi Shankara producing all the great works, and we see Krishna himself engaging in so many activities. So activities, in fact, go on very beautifully, but with the attitude of service, not with the attitude of what's in it for me. And service is not even in the sense of I am serving you, that is duality, but service as a natural expression of being. So the best way to understand it is how the body engages in serving different parts. So when I eat food, the fingers are serving the stomach, but the fingers don't think I'm serving the stomach. It's just one unitary movement. And yet, without the fingers, the stomach cannot get food, and without the stomach, the limbs cannot get strength. So it's all interconnected, and actions are spontaneous, serving each other. And that is the way of living in freedom. So Krishna, that's why he reveals the Vishwarupa, where he reveals that the whole universe is one body. So if you look at, just as our body is one unit and we naturally serve, when something comes to the eye, I just touch and the fingers spontaneously serve the eye. It is not that the finger says, I'm going to serve the eye now. It's spontaneous. So similarly, spontaneous action without even the sense that I am serving is true service. And that service comes only when one is free of me and mine. And that is Jivan Mukti. So this is the effect of Satsanga. So when we speak of Satsang, it's not some ordinary thing. As Shankara beautifully says, as all great beings have said, Satsang brings forth the highest platform. Satsang alone. It's hard to believe, but it's true. If we engage more in Satsang, vasanas go away, devotion springs up, love comes, delusion goes, everything happens through Satsang. So when we engage in Satsang, this is the effect. And Satsang, of course, is beautiful when it is in this way, but it is also in many other forms. We can engage in Satsang through listening to a discourse or through reading a book. All of this is also Satsang. But this way of meeting in person is especially powerful because of the collective energy. So we are coming together, therefore, in this way of Satsang. And we will therefore be in Satsang throughout the next 2 days, which is to say that we are not just gathering information about anything. It is not about gathering information. It is not about learning anything new, but it is about being in Satsang. So, which means that every moment can be in Satsang the next 2 days, and that can continue, of course, every moment, even when we go back home. But when we eat, when we wash the dishes, everything is part of Satsang. So to serve and to take part in activities silently with that awareness and not let the mind come out and engage in any chatter that is unnecessary, but only engage in topics that are related to recognizing the divine within and activities to serve everyone with love is a very beautiful way to be in Satsang. So we can all be in this way, seeing the divine in each other in this retreat. And we can also keep this space as suggested beautifully. This space can be kept only for silent sitting. So even during breaks, if anyone wants to come and sit here and sit silently, let them do that. And even when we eat and we do other work, we can do with the same sort of silent awareness. Silent doesn't mean not speaking, of course. We can speak as necessary, but just not having chatter within. Other than that, let's get into the introduction to this beautiful work. So, we all know about the unique grace of Ramana Maharshi. There have been many great avadhutas. Bhagavatam talks about various avadhutas. We learn about Jadabharata, Dattatreya, so many. But we haven't seen anyone in modern times, let's say, living it. So one may say that these are just tales. And it's nice to portray such beings, but it's not really practical or something like that. But to disprove all of that, we have in front of us the living example of Ramana Maharshi, who lived a short, less than 100 years ago, in the full glare of everyone in the so-called modern world, and still lived as a perfect avadhuta. And through him came the highest teaching, which reinvigorated the wisdom of the Upanishads. So the wisdom of the Upanishads points to a simple realization that all there is only one supreme truth, and that you are Tattvamasi. And this truth, Tattvamasi, points to the divine nature of each one of us as essentially the same, regardless of all the differences we may have in physical, mental, emotional, and all the other ways of manifestations. The essence of it is the same. It is hard to see this sameness, but that is the pointer of the Upanishads. The best example, there are many examples given for that, or one of the easiest example to relate to is the ocean and the waves. We may have many waves in the ocean. Each wave looks very different. Some waves are ferocious, some waves are gentle. We have tsunamis, we have small waves. All of them have their own characteristics, their own personality even. That's why we even call them by names. We say Helene or Katrina. All these names are given because they have actually a personality, in the sense that they behave in a certain way, but actually all they are just water. So the entire manifestation of all these waves boil down to only one simple phenomenon, which is water. And yet they look so different and they are infinite. So this is the same way that we are too, that we are all each unique in our expression, and yet everyone is made of the same essence. So that statement can be simply a theoretical understanding. We can say that everyone is made of the same stuff, and we can have the example of waves and ocean, or ornaments and gold. There are many such examples given. But all of this can be simply theory. We can understand all this intellectually. We can say, therefore, I am that, and go about in our usual ways of engaging as me and mine, which is what happens normally. But that is not the pointer of Upanishads. Upanishads are not saying simply assert that you are that as a understanding. They are saying that you, as you know yourself, do not exist. All that exists is God, is Brahman. And that truth was not revealed in its most clearest way, at least in the modern times, for many centuries, till Ramana Maharshi came. So Ramana Maharshi came and uniquely revealed this truth that it is not a statement to be accepted as an authority, but it is a statement that can be realized through direct inquiry and surrender. Of course, there are many who lived that life of surrender, both in the recent centuries and in the ancient times. Many acharyas, many great bhagavatas, they've all exemplified that. But the unique grace of Ramana Maharshi is to bring it out in a way that silences the mind by quietening all the questions in the mind and taking one to the heart. The way of pure devotion, which also is the same realization, requires one to have that connection of devotion, which is actually a great blessing and not very common. Normally, it is said that bhakti is easy and jnana is hard, but actually, it's the other way around if you really look at it, because bhakti is not easy. One cannot be in the mode of Meera by willing to be that way. One cannot be like Andal or any of those great devotees. That kind of devotion where the me is completely gone comes only by pure grace. They didn't make any effort. They were just blessed with that devotion, and that is not something that one can imitate. But jnana is something that one can inquire into and thereby come to the state of bhakti. And that is the way of self-inquiry and surrender. So when we speak of jnana, of course, the word jnana does not mean knowledge as the way we understand it. Many times it's translated as just knowledge. The English word knowledge, in fact, like many English words, it comes from Sanskrit. No and jna are the same root. But at the same time, the way it's used in English is different from the way the word jnana in its true essence is, which is not objective knowledge. Knowledge is normally that which we gather through memory. So we have memory, we have intellect, we use the memory and intellect to gather knowledge, and that knowledge we then store, and then we use it, and then by using it, we refine that knowledge. This is the normal process of what we call knowledge. The word jnana used here is not that. It is that which is the direct realization or wisdom that comes about by recognizing our true nature, by being free of the false ego. So that jnana is therefore not to be treated as an objective knowledge to acquire. And that is what is the trap for the mind, and especially so before Ramana Maharshi revealed this way. Because normally jnana was considered as simply studying Upanishads and then understanding them and then abiding by them. And there is great value in that. It's called Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. And when one actually does the Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana properly, it will of course bring us to the same platform. But there is every chance of making it another activity of acquiring knowledge. So many engage in, that's why, courses and learning more and more, and then what is called as Shastra Vasana comes, and one wants to learn more Upanishads and more. Then to aid that, we want to learn Nyaya, and then to aid that, we want to learn language and all the rest. So the direct pointer is missed because of that. So that's where the unique grace of Ramana Maharshi comes, where he says the truth of the Upanishads is to be realized not through book knowledge but through looking within. And that looking within is true knowledge. That's why it's not knowledge as we understand it, it is realization. And that realization comes only when we look within to recognize the sameness. Again, the word same comes from sama, same root. So, sameness comes because of not understanding but by recognizing who we are in the true essence. So, that is the revelation of Ramana Maharshi. And in fact, this very book is called Revelation because of all the teachings of Ramana Maharshi. If one has to pick one teaching, if you say you can only read one book of Ramana Maharshi, what would it be? That gives the entire teaching without anything else. We don't need any other concept. You don't need anything else. You just want the pure teaching. That will be Ulladu Narpadu. Because every teaching is, of course, wonderful in its own way. Every teaching has its own beauty. It was given in different circumstances to different people for different reasons. But Ulladu Narpadu holds the most unique place because it is that came from him as an exposition of the teaching in a sequence of verses that only speaks of self-inquiry and surrender. So we have other famous works. Upadesha Saram is a beautiful work. Upadesha Saram was given because of a request by Muruganar to speak what Shiva would have spoken to the rishis who were caught in rituals. Just as Krishna speaks in the Gita saying, don't get caught in karma kanda, transcend it. Same instruction is given by Shiva to the rishis. So there Ramana Maharshi starts with karma yoga, then puja, japa, dhyana, then he leads to self-inquiry. So that's a complete teaching in a different way, but that's not the direct teaching with nothing else. It has many other things. So that has a different place in the pantheon. And then there are many beautiful devotional works written to Arunachala, which all again point to the same teaching, but they refer to Arunachala as the physical manifestation of the same truth of the heart. So they have a different place which is very beautiful to chant and to listen to. And there are many other verses and stray works and all that have been done. Many translations he has done of many other works. But the one work that is purely about the essence of truth is Ulladu Narpadu, the 40 verses. Actually 42, because there are 2 invocatory verses and then 40 verses. So that is the greatness of Ulladu Narpadu. And there are many commentaries on Ulladu Narpadu. It was translated into Sanskrit first actually by Lakshmana Sharma, who's also called as, who very humbly called himself Who. He didn't even put his name. He just said Who. Later it was revealed that it was Lakshmana Sharma. And he was a great scholar in Sanskrit as well. So he translated it to Sanskrit, which is called as Ramana Hridayam. And later that translation was redone by Kavyakanta Ganapati Muni as Saddarshanam. And then there are many commentaries written on Saddarshanam itself and on Ulladu Narpadu. But the unique place of this commentary is that Lakshmana Sharma literally sat at the feet of Ramana Maharshi. Every verse he would ask questions, write the commentary, get it reviewed by Ramana Maharshi, refine it, And that's how he wrote it. So this is like the most authentic commentary on this work. And he very beautifully says in his prelude, not to this work but to another work, which is a very beautiful statement, where he says, normally we consider Upanishads as pramanam. And we say, if anyone is speaking in accordance with Upanishads, then it is correct. He says the opposite. He says, Upanishads are correct because they are in accordance with what Ramana is saying. Because that is the way he sees Ramana. He sees that whatever I see in him is so perfect, and it turns out Upanishads are saying the same thing, so they must be right. So that's how he relates to this teaching. And so that's what we will go with. We are not going to go through the whole commentary, it's quite elaborate, but condense it and present it. There are 40 verses and the 2 introduction verses, so we'll go through all of that in whatever level of detail the time permits us. The first 2 verses, in fact, contain the entire teaching, so they are alone very powerful. But all the verses are, again, equally powerful. In fact, one important thing to point out is he has organized, based on loosely the way the verses flow, that the first portion is called as Viveka or discernment. Then the second portion is Vichara or inquiry. And the third portion is Anubhava or realization. But then he himself has written, as will be obvious, that every verse actually has all 3. It's not that you can easily separate the 3. Each verse has the discernment, which leads to inquiry, which leads to realization. So any one verse, if we go fully into it, is actually enough. So we don't have to, therefore, again, get into the mind's desire to even master this work and know all the 42 verses. One verse, one line, one word is enough if we actually truly listen to it, what he is pointing to. That said, all the verses are beautiful, and therefore we'll cover as many as we can, hopefully all 40. And the way he relates to it is through this direct recognition of who Ramana Maharshi is. And when we recognize this, then we will realize that what he is pointing to is actually our own true self. And that true self is what we are connecting with. We are not creating any theory or any projection of the mind, but we are actually looking into what our true essence is. And by recognizing our true essence, we can actually see Ramana Maharshi as living reality and not as just a historical figure. So that is the essence of this work, and that is the essence of the whole teaching. When we recognize this, then we actually connect to the teaching and the teacher, and thereby we simply get absorbed in the teaching. One of the verses says, the whole purpose of this is to become food for Bhagavan. Kadavulukku oonadal. He says to just, you vanish and he shines. So as long as the me remains, we can only have a projection of him in the mind. When the me vanishes, his true presence is felt. So that is the whole purpose of this work, is to not understand anything intellectually, but to See here and now that I, as I know myself, do not exist. All that exists is simply the divine, the one supreme essence that alone manifests as all that there is. To see that is to see God. And that is the purpose of Ulladu Narpadu. There is a beautiful introduction to, or one can say, sort of expression of Lakshmana Sharma's understanding of this message. It's a short 1-2 pages. I'll read this. With this we can probably, maybe if there's any question we can take and then we can break. But it's a very beautiful, powerful message. If we get this, we can get the spirit of Ramana. He wrote it on a Ramana Jayanti. Jayanti is the, as we know, the normally marked as the day he appeared. But he says what is true Jayanti and who is true Ramana. He says, this is Lakshmana Sharma. To us, Ramana is himself the message. Ramana has no Jayanti of his own because he is the unborn, timeless, real self in us. So what we call Jayanti is our own Jayanti, our birth in him, our real self. The birth is guaranteed to us, his sincere devotees, because he has looked upon us with grace. Ramana is the formless, timeless and spaceless Arunachala who dances as I in the heart. He has graciously taken form that we may be relieved of the bondage of form. He is not a geographical entity but the unmoving Brahman of the Upanishads. Grace is his essence, and out of grace he has become our Guru. Grace is not merely in Tiruvannamalai but resides in our hearts. The heart is the true Arunachala. The might of his grace is infinite. It is invincible. By his look, we were caught in the net of his grace, and it will accomplish its work. There is no escape from it. His grace is like the unerring light of the sun. As it devours the darkness, so grace devours ignorance and unreality. We need do nothing at all except give our free consent that this work of grace be accomplished. To give our consent, we must realize the truth about the work of grace that it demands, in return for the gift of Ramana himself. Our own, too much cherished but wholly valueless false self, the ego, which makes us think and say, I am so and so. We must ourselves ardently desire to win him by paying this seeming price and surrender this ego to him. This highly profitable bargain is won by faith. We need to have such faith since we know that Ramana is the same as Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya and Dakshinamurti. That his words are the primary Upanishad from which the ancient Upanishads derive their authority. We do not go backward in time for our authority. We find the needful authority in Ramana alone. Though he tells us about the quest of this self by the question, who am I? He tells us that even now, without our making the quest, we are that, and that itself are we. In other words, we are free by nature and always. We are Nitya Muktas. Bondage is unreal. Hence, our Jayanti is not the future but now. All difference, including bondage, karma, etc., is unreal. He laughs at us for asking how we can become one with him, saying it is like a man in Tiruvannamalai asking the way to go to Tiruvannamalai. Let him laugh at us, for that laugh is full of grace, and will make us realize that we are He and do not need to become He. There is no room for discouragement or remorse for our sins or for fear of failure. Grace alone exists and it is He. If we do wrong, let us not weep, but forget it at once and joyfully take refuge in His grace. Must we do something like the squirrel at the Setu Bandhan? Well, let us think of some of these truths of Ramana's grace and surrender our little selves to it when we awake. If remembrance comes of its own accord, let us rejoice in it. If we fail to stick to our program, let us not waste thought in regret, but go on with faith in His grace. That's how Lakshmana Sharma speaks with such power of the grace and the revelation of these teachings. So he says that if we simply, all we are doing is like the squirrel in the Setu Bandhan when we read these teachings, because we are actually, first of all, as he also pointed out, what we take ourselves to be is false even now. So we are already what we are looking for. So we do not have to therefore do anything to become, as he nicely put it there. Becoming is only for the ego, only for mind. It's only in time. Being is timeless. So that which is timeless can never be touched through time. So we are already that which we are seemingly looking for. So all that the Guru does is to point out that you are already what you are looking for. And that recognition is what Ulladu Narpadu gives us. It gives us the recognition that the true Ramana alone lives within. All that appears is simply an expression of that one truth, whatever we call the truth, whatever name we call. In fact, there is an exact verse, Eppairit Ethinum, whatever name we call this truth, whether we call him God, Bhagavan, Arunachala, Ramana, Krishna, whatever we call, it's only pointing to the same one truth, and that alone manifests as all the variegated forms. So we'll go into this work to recognize that, to go back as a funnel. Everything comes out. If we funnel it back down, it comes to the source. So just recognizing the source is the nature of this work.